at the very tip of that pyramid will be your speculative investments. And this is where I put collectibles. Collectibles have to be part of speculative investments. And because they're at the very top, there are things that are going to be crucial in your consideration of them within that portfolio. Again, it's very important that we know where they stand vis-a-vis our other investments. Hi, Rampver Financials friends. This is again Rex Mendoza. In this video, I will be tackling a very interesting topic for many of you. Yes, again, it's a bit unique. We're going to be discussing collectibles. True, at a time like this, within a pandemic, why is there an increased interest for collectibles? It can range from art, coins, wristwatches, precious gems, toys, shoes, and even cards. All of these things have been increasing in value. But I guess many people have also lost money not understanding what they got into. And that's the reason why I'm particularly excited to talk about this with you, because it is becoming part and parcel of one's financial assets. True, while this is a passion and a collection for many, the way they have increased in terms of stored value and the way they have, practically grown beyond inflation and probably even beating other financial instruments make them quite an interesting study. You know what? I really thought about doing this because I just attended an auction. It's an online auction because obviously people cannot go into a certain place in a packed hall where they can outdo each other on the paddles. Today, most of it is done online. But I was amazed. I was thinking, because of the pandemic, art prices would probably be challenged. I was floored. The prices were way up. I did not win anything. I bidded on a few, but my bid price was but a fraction of the ending winning bids on the pieces that I wanted. So it's really going to be exciting and interesting to talk about this. But before I do that, let me thank all of you for all the support. Please do like this video and subscribe to our channel if you have not subscribed yet. Those who like this video will get luck for 5 straight years. And for those of you who are going to be subscribing fresh to our channel, luck for the next 10 years. I'm just kidding. My friends, I hope you get to support us. We're trying to make a difference in other people's lives. And I do hope we're part of your journey as of this point. So let me get down to the collectibles. I guess I have to start with the pluses and the minuses. What are the advantages and disadvantages of collectibles as investment instruments, as stores of value? Okay? So number one, first and foremost, is the fact that there is portability. Sometimes we do make investments in stuff that we cannot take elsewhere. Like if there's something wrong that happens, in times of war, people can actually run with their gold bars, with their bullions, sometimes with stored art. And that can be carried on to many other places where ownership can actually be preserved. That kind of portability is an advantage. Obviously, you cannot carry your real estate around with you. You cannot carry other immovable assets. And sometimes, even if they are marketable instruments, financial instruments, somehow they're going to be focused on the markets where they are traded. At times, it's so difficult to trade and bring them elsewhere. Because of that, most of these collectibles have global markets. Yes, if you have diamonds and you go anywhere in the world, there would be places where you can trade those diamonds, where you can trade those precious metals. Even art, Filipino art has been very popular in places like Singapore and Hong Kong. Sotheby's and Christie's have auctioned Philippine art way above the prices they've been doing here. And that's the reason why most of our artists are highly demanded abroad. So global markets will be a big plus for collectibles. Another advantage is the fact that these collectibles gain value. So I've mentioned many times, stores of value. But over time, collectibles are actually known to outpace inflation. It's actually known to outpace inflation. And because interest rates are really going down, in many places, there's now like technically negative interest rates. In the Philippines, we're almost there. In fact, with inflation rate much higher than what we're earning in our bank accounts, we're really there now, right? And I guess that's one of the reasons why these art pieces flew today in that art auction, because money has to find its way into places where they can actually grow. And if you're earning like, let's say, 0.25 to 0.5% per annum in a bank, some art pieces do much better than that. So even baseball cards, basketball cards, they always say if it's just inflation, the prices of these items outpace inflation in many areas. So basically, they do perform vis-a-vis other financial instruments. I think the unique part would be these last two advantages. I have yet to see someone who made a killing in the stock market who will probably be calling friends or family members to take a picture with stock certificates. That usually doesn't happen, right? But again, if you own great pieces of art and you can hang this in the walls of your home, then definitely it changes many things because you feel good. There is prestige in ownership and you feel good about having these. They're all around you. You feel good because you enjoy seeing them all the time. Just take a look at the two pieces that are behind me. They're so wonderful, right? They're absolutely beautiful. Well, they're the works of art of one of my daughter's good friends, Mikey Concepcion. If you're gonna be having these pieces hanging on your walls, you feel good about it. You take pleasure. And when you see them all the time, they give you such a positive feeling. The vibrant colors just give you a very upbeat feeling. So owning them, sometimes can be more emotionally rewarding than other investments that I have that are financial instruments. They're bland, they're disconnected. And because of that, we get ourselves into a level of passion. That's the next advantage. You see, when you're into a passion already, you try to learn about them. You try to research about them. So what happens? It's not just simply the price. It's not simply the way they appreciate in value. It now becomes something that you get involved with. And when you do that, the fun is actually not simply in having or owning. The fun is in the hunt and the finds. The hunt and the finds give you a level of enjoyment. For example, I did not get any piece, as I've said, in the auction today, but I had fun in trying to find which pieces I like and hopefully can acquire. It's just that I just didn't have the money for it or the willingness to part with my money just to get them. How about disadvantages? Obviously, much like any capital assets, there are downsides. And one of the biggest downsides is the fact that pricing doesn't have any standard. It doesn't have any standard. It's much unlike financial assets where you can make computations, where valuation can actually be based on certain objective metrics. But with collectibles, at times, it's purely emotional. It's purely a supply and demand play. And that's the reason why it becomes, again, another distinct disadvantage. You see, on top of not having standardization as far as price is concerned, you can also have the disadvantage of having liquidity as an issue. And that's the reason why that's one of the dangers. You see, once you need the money and you cannot find the buyer, guess what happens? You get punished because of undertaking a distressed sale. That's one of the problems there. It's okay if there are takers, if there is demand as of a certain time that you're unloading your property, that you're unloading your collectible. But if there are no takers and at that particular time, there's a dearth of buyers, you might have to part with it at a very, very low price. The last disadvantage is by far that one which gives me a lot of discomfort. And it's this: the fact that this market of collectibles has a lot of unscrupulous individuals and syndicates. There are a lot of fakes all around you. You know, sometimes you cannot really distinguish the real and the not real. So you can get into trouble buying something which you thought is of a certain value, only to find out that it's just a replica of the real legitimate item. So you can actually lose a lot of money because you can easily be fooled in this market. You know, I'm astounded with the quality of fake watches in Green Hills. You go there, if you're not an astute collector with experience, some of those watches you might believe will be real. Most especially when they're in the wrist of your friends, where your exposure will be like a few seconds, where you cannot scrutinize and examine pieces in close range. We have to be very careful in these collectibles so that we're sure that we're getting the legitimate, authentic pieces. And if we're not so sure, we should be able to get advice from certain friends. So, based on those pros and cons, let me now give you my tips for those who are embarking on collectibles as part of their investment portfolios. I guess the first one is to know where they're supposed to be at in our range of investments. If you remember, I've showed many of you a certain pyramid where the lowest part would be your security instruments, where your security vehicles that take care of your emergency funds, contingencies, health, and stuff like that. That's going to be the very basic, the very base. Okay? On top of that, if you already have that, then you now go to your short-term investment instruments, fixed income instruments, very liquid, which can still cover your emergency needs if ever. And if you're already done with that base, and if you're already done with that level, you now move into longer-term instruments and what we call growth investments. This is going to kick up your accumulation phase. This will get you into the active game of growing an asset base. Growth assets can now be equity-laced mutual funds, direct stocks, real estate, and stuff like that. At the very tip of that pyramid will be your speculative investments. And this is where I put collectibles. Collectibles have to be part of speculative investments. And because they're at the very top, there are things that are going to be crucial in your consideration of them within that portfolio. Again, it's very important that we know where they stand vis-a-vis our other investments. And because of that very nature, we have to have staying power. We have to have staying power. If you're going to be putting money in collectibles, don't try and think you're going to be selling them for a profit very soon. You have to be able to sell them in your own terms at a time where you're not going to be distressed. And for that reason, they're not supposed to match any particular goal or necessity. See, we actually have targets like education of children. If your kid will be going to school in 5 years, obviously the kind of instrument that you get to match with that is something which will have an horizon of 5 years. If you're going to be putting art against that, if you're going to be putting collectibles like toys against that, we're not really so sure of the value of all of these things in 5 years. So since these are speculative investments, I'd rather own them because I like owning them and enjoying them rather than matching them with a specific financial goal. And because we talked about staying power, never ever buy a collectible on debt. Even, if you think you have strong confidence about the value, if you borrow money, then we'll have problems. You see, when you borrow money, obviously you have to pay that. And that's firm. That's a firm obligation. But the value of collectibles can go up and down. So much so that there can be extreme volatility. Here is where you have debt on one side where you have to pay interest, for sure, and speculative investments where you never know where your gain is going to be coming from and when. So that's quite a mismatch you don't want to have. Next tip, understand the value of your collectibles. Understand how prices move in a given time. The last thing you want is for you to become the emotional one. You'd like your buyers to be emotional, to want this more than anything. As far as you're concerned, try not to be so emotional about it, because when you like something too much, guess what? You will always overpay for it. You will always overpay for something that you feel you want too badly. So somehow, control that kind of emotion. You know, at times, my kids actually laugh at me because in an art auction, I'm the only one, I guess, who brings a calculator and who's making computations as the biddings are going. That's going to be funny, but that's true. I like to know the price per square inch of a certain artist and how it moves even within one auction or maybe past auctions. And it's funny because you might think I'm looking at them just like stock and bonds, but what's wrong about that? At least I know the trends in the prices of that person's artwork. I know the direction where they headed. Is he getting more popular? Is he getting more following? And that's the reason why I'll be more confident in owning his pieces. As I've said, down markets can actually punish people who need money. And that's the reason why I don't want to be in that particular situation. I study and evaluate prices. I study and evaluate trends so that I don't make a mistake in becoming too excessively emotional about my bids. And that goes on to the next tip. Always remember, opportunities will always surface. Don't ever think that this is the last auction or this is the last opportunity. When you do that, you're going to be more intense, and if you're more intense, you let go of more money. Believe me, there will always be a time and there would be another piece coming along. So don't be too overexcited. Don't be too over-attached. Be patient. It's very important that you're patient. Again, I always say this to a lot of people. If you want something too much, it becomes a need. And when you feel it's already a need, you will pay for it. If you know it's going to be a luxury, whether I get it or not is too much of a consequence. Because of that, I can actually teach myself to wait for the next thing to come. Lastly, there are lessons to be learned. Yes, we all make mistakes in our collections. And that's the reason why try to learn from those mistakes. Try to refine your collection. I think you all knew that with the way I've been collecting in terms of my wristwatches. For some of you who haven't watched that, I will put a link. For those of you who might want to watch these two videos to learn a little bit more about wristwatches and my watch collection. With that, my friends, I hope this video has been helpful, has been interesting and exciting for many of you who are starting to get into collectibles and starting to make them part of their investment and financial journey. Again, for those of you who haven't subscribed to our channel, please do so, and please hit that thumbs up to give us a like because it helps us in the algorithm of YouTube. Friends, this is again Rex Mendoza, thanking all of you for being with us and for being one of our Rampver Financials family. Blessings always.